Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I've got to do some impressions on this knife because I am sending this knife to the rightful owner today. If you watched my, I don't know if you'd call it an unboxing, but where I showed off all the things that I bought at the California Custom Knife Show, I showed this as well because I was technically the one who purchased it, although not really with my own money. I was helping a buddy out who wanted to get one of these Striders and does not live in California, couldn't get here for the show, and he was a nice dude and was cool about it, so I'm sending this to him today. But I was actually pretty excited to pick it up because I've gotten to handle a few Striders over the course of my time in the knife hobby. And I've always liked several things about Striders, but I've never really been into them. And Strider kind of seems like one of those brands where people are either like into them or sometimes almost against them. I shouldn't even say almost. I know more than a few people who are against Strider knives. And so I'm not going to make any comments about the culture behind Strider knives or why people are against them or any of that. I think all of that has kind of been said. So I'm just going to talk about this as a knife. This isn't a knife that I bought. So if you're somebody who is vehemently against buying all Striders, don't come at me. I'm just going to leave that there. So this is a pretty specific Strider. This one, I hope I don't butcher all these terms because there's some very specific Strider lingo and it's kind of its own ethos, and I am not part of that, so I might get some of this a little bit off from what I understand. This is a gunner grip, that I'm pretty sure, but it's a hybrid. So it's a gunner grip G10 show scale, and then the lock side is not gunner grip. I think that's why it's called a hybrid, is because one side is gunner grip, the other is not. That's what I'm assuming. That's kind of what I've picked up around this knife, but open to being wrong there, so don't sue me. So it's a G10 scale, it's a layered G10, and it actually looks pretty rad, I think. What they've done is they've used a couple different colors of G10, so you can see it's stacked with white, black, and brown G10, and because of that stacking you get this really cool look where they've kind of drilled these divots down into it, and yeah, it just has a different look than just being regular old G10. So I think that's kind of cool. I will say, and I'll get to this a little bit more, this grip for me is way, way, way more rough and intense than I would ever want on pretty much any knife. So it is the side that really makes the most contact with your pocket isn't really a pocket shredder, but this is, I don't know, like a thigh shredder inside your pocket. It's like, it's really, really rough. But yeah, so this one is titanium lock side, obviously, and it's the flame anodized titanium, the flame I don't know what you call it, but it's got the kind of stripy look to it that you see on a lot of Striders. And I'm not usually a big like flame titanium kind of guy, flame pattern or whatever. It just doesn't usually like speak to me. I will say I do think it looks cool on here, and especially like if I was getting a Strider, if I was purchasing one for myself, I'd probably want the lock side to look like this. This is about like in my head what a Strider should look like. So this, of course, as a model is the SNG, so it is the kind of mid-sized one, if you will. There is the PT, which is the littler guy. There's this, the SNG, and then the SMF, which is larger. And then there's a bunch of models that don't fit within that at all, or there's, I think, like custom ones with different blades and all kinds of ridiculous stuff. But this is just the spear point SNG. Blade steel on this guy is RWL-34. Let's see if I can show you that. It's pretty small, just stamped right there. We've got the Strider logo. They have a specific name for that logo. I don't remember what it's called, but Strider. On this side, all you've got on there is M Strider. So that of course stands for Mixed Strider. And yeah, we've got RWL-34 Blade Steel, titanium lock side, G10 show side. And this really is just going to be kind of an impressions of this knife video. This knife has not even been slid into my pocket. I haven't carried it at all whatsoever. I haven't cut with it. at all whatsoever. It has pretty much stayed in this baggie. I've handled it just a little bit just to kind of check it out, and that's that. But I figured this was a knife kind of worth showing. So I've had some ProTech Striders very recently. I had the really cool Mike Irie hand ground, like compound grind with mirror finish ProTech SNG. That was a cool knife. Had a micarta show scale. I really liked it, but it was a little too pretty for me to keep and use, so I ended up rehoming it. I think eventually I'll probably end up with another ProTech SNG, maybe an operator. Actually, almost got one at California Custom Knife Show, but I don't know. I'll probably end up with another one. I like the SNG as a knife in terms of, for my hands, the ergos, especially when I'm choked up into the forward finger choil, just feels really, really good. The SMF actually fits my hand better than I originally would have thought as well. The SMF doesn't feel way too big for me, but I do feel like the SNG for me and my uses is kind of the right size. If you like bigger knives, then the SMF is just the bigger SNG. I like that they have holes for deployment here, so I can middle finger flick it, although obviously this is not broken in at all, but it's not exactly super smooth. And I don't know if you can hear that, but when I go to close it, again, brand new, may very well break in, but there is a little bit of lock stick. And it's funny, a lot of the guys that I know very well, who I consider friends in the community, who are really into Striders, are pretty open about a lot of the things that people kind of pick apart Striders for, like lock stick being one of them. And they don't try to deny that. But then there are other people who I think are kind of like, these two groups might not even get along, so they might be mad that I'm making this comparison. But there are guys in the Strider world who I see very similar to like Chris Reeve fanboys, who want to defend everything about the knife as if it is the only and best way to make a knife. And I disagree. I like the design of the SNG, but for me and the way I use knives, the SNGs that I've handled have all been pretty similar to this, where this knife doesn't feel poorly built, but there is a little bit of lock stick here. May well stop sticking eventually, I don't know, but it's a little bit harsh on my hands. This G10 is really, really rough, and the whole knife just feels a little bit rough to me, and not in like a, ooh, this is burly kind of way, but like the fit and finish and the way it's all put together just doesn't feel very precise. And I feel like at $495 table price, and this one being a show knife that I don't think they've made like this very often, or at least in quite a while, it's probably on secondary. This knife is probably worth way more than I got it for my friend at the table at the show already, like substantially more. And to me, that's where I just kind of, I don't know, I've never felt like I just need one or really want one, because at the price that they come at, I've never felt, for what I look for in a knife and what I value in a knife, that they really get there for me. It's an interesting thing though, because I genuinely love the design and like the profile of this knife, the ergos. If you've held a Strider before, an SNG or an SMF, then you probably know what I'm talking about. But they have a very specific way, especially when you're choked up, of just working in the hand, and I like that a lot. Even when I'm choked back, the way it fits in my hand is very, very good. In a reverse grip, it's one of the best knives out there, in my opinion. But it's just, for the price, I feel like it makes concessions for other things that are also important to me, like action, fit and finish, and I don't know. I just, I like them, but every time I start to think to myself, I'm going to get a Strider, I'm going to finally do it, then it seems like I hold one again, and I'm like, no, I don't feel like I actually really do need one of these. And I feel like the sweet spot for me genuinely probably is just getting the ones that are made by ProTech. Because the ProTech ones, I freaking love ProTech's fit and finish and quality and all of that. I would love it if ProTech did one that wasn't in 154 cm. That would make me happy. If I could get an upgraded blade steel on one of the ProTech ones, that might really push me over the edge. But yeah, it just, I don't know, it doesn't click for me. And this one specifically, the one thing I do feel I should talk about some more. This G10, I get that it's like, for a lot of people, this is the one that they would be hunting down because it has this G10. And preference is a crazy thing, because yours could be 180 degrees different from what mine is, and that's totally fair. This would never be one that I would pick. In fact, when I got to the table to buy this for my buddy, I was impressed to see that there were still a few more left beyond this one. They had some in other colors, and so I had thought about maybe getting one for myself. It was the first table I stopped at, so I hadn't walked around the show yet, and that would have been kind of a gamble because I didn't bring that much money to California Custom Knife Show. So it basically probably would have been the only knife I bought if I did get one. And I picked them up, and it was like, I know if I had this aggressive of G10 on my knife, I wouldn't keep it. I wouldn't like it. I don't enjoy how aggressive this is. To other people, they might see it as an absolute positive because this knife will not come out of your hand. Especially Striders have jimping in quite a few places. That coupled with this G10, it's nuts. It's really, really aggressive G10. Some of the most aggressive that I've felt. And if you know my preferences, you know I typically don't really like jimping. I don't really like really aggressive texturing. And what I know about the SNG, because I've handled the ProTech ones in smooth aluminum scales all the way around, is that with the ergos and the way that the handle and the knife are shaped, I don't need more texture for this knife to feel locked into my hand, because this knife feels super locked in just by design. So all of this extra grip to me is just unnecessary and unwanted. But like I said, that's my preference. I think that's always important to say. I don't mean to like come down on this as if it's a flaw in the knife. It's a flaw for me because of my preferences. It's not a flaw in like design, I'm sure. And as evidenced by the people I saw at the show who were going nuts over these, there is definitely an audience who sees this scale material and this scale texture as a very positive thing. So take that all for what it's worth. But yeah, I like Striders. I do. There's a couple things that make them not quite connect for me. And it's funny because I think if they all of a sudden got really precise and stopped having all the lock stick and like really kind of dialed everything in to the point where they felt a little more refined, a lot of the people who are super into them might feel like they've lost their charm a little bit. I know a couple of my friends who've seen like some of the examples, it seems, that come out now, these days, do seem to be more refined. I'm not sure why this one doesn't quite feel that way to me, but a lot of them, from what I've heard, do seem to be, the fit and finish seems to have gone up a notch. And a lot of my buddies who are really into them seem to talk about those new ones as if they're like not the same old Striders, you know? So I don't know really how I line up on that, but I guess that'll be all of my thoughts on this guy. This is the Strider SNG GG Gunner Grip Hybrid, I think is the way to say it, and it's an RWL-34 Blade Steel, and it is a very, very cool knife, and I like the way it looks. I like a lot of the things about it, but I don't love it overall. So I hope the guy who I bought it for does love it. If not, he can rest assured that I'm sure he probably won't lose any money on the secondary. In fact, he'll probably make some. So there's that. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.